A black father walked into his daughter's elementary school for a surprise lunch visit. What he saw through the classroom window made his blood run cold. His 8-year-old daughter, Emma, was sitting alone in the corner while other kids played together. And the teacher, she was pointing at Emma, saying something that made the other children laugh. Marcus Johnson, a successful architect, had no idea his daughter was being bullied and isolated at the school he'd carefully chosen. What he discovered in the next hour would expose a pattern of racism so deep that it would shake the entire school district. And by the end of the day, 3 people would lose their jobs. This is a true story about a father's love, a daughter's courage, and how one surprise visit changed everything. Before we dive into this powerful story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more stories about standing up for what's right and protecting our children. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's see what Marcus discovered. Marcus Johnson was 38 years old, a successful architect who had built his career from nothing. He grew up in a tough neighborhood in Detroit, but his mother always told him, "Education is your way out." Marcus worked hard, got scholarships, and graduated from the University of Michigan with honors. Now Marcus lived in Riverside, a mostly white suburb of Chicago. He and his wife, Jennifer, had moved there specifically for the good schools. They wanted their daughter Emma to have every opportunity they didn't have growing up. Marcus was the kind of father who never missed a school event. He went to parent-teacher conferences, volunteered for field trips, and always asked Emma about her day. But lately, something had changed. Emma was 8 years old in 3rd grade. She was bright, creative, and loved drawing. She had Marcus's warm smile and Jennifer's artistic talent. But for the past 3 months, Emma had become quiet and withdrawn. She used to run to the car after school, excited to tell her parents about her day. Now she barely spoke. She used to beg for playdates with friends. Now she said she didn't want any. She used to love school. Now she complained about stomachaches every morning. Jennifer noticed first. "Something's wrong," she told Marcus one night. "Emma's not herself." Marcus talked to Emma, but she just said, "I'm fine, Daddy." He emailed her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who replied, "Emma is doing well academically, no concerns." But Marcus's gut told him something was very wrong. On a Tuesday morning, Marcus's work meeting got canceled. He decided to surprise Emma by bringing her favorite lunch, chicken nuggets and apple slices from her favorite restaurant. The school had an open lunch policy where parents could visit. It was 11:45 a.m. when Marcus walked into Riverside Elementary. The hallways were decorated with children's artwork and achievement posters. It looked perfect. It looked safe. Marcus signed in at the office and headed to Emma's classroom, room 214, 3rd floor. As he approached, he could hear children's voices through the door. He looked through the small window before entering. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Through the classroom window, Marcus saw the students sitting in groups, eating their lunches and chatting, all except one. Emma was sitting alone at a desk in the far corner, away from everyone else. Her lunch box was closed. She wasn't eating. Her head was down, and even from the doorway, Marcus could see her shoulders slumped. Mrs. Patterson, a white woman in her 50s, was walking around the room. She stopped near a group of girls and said something. They all looked toward Emma and giggled. Marcus's heart pounded. He opened the door. "Hi, Mr. Johnson," Mrs. Patterson said with a bright smile. "What a nice surprise." "I brought lunch for Emma," Marcus said, holding up the bag. His voice was steady, but his eyes were watching everything. Emma's head shot up. When she saw her father, her eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away, but Marcus saw. "Emma, honey, come here," Marcus said. Emma walked over slowly. Marcus noticed the other children whispering and staring. "Why were you sitting alone?" Marcus asked gently. "That's her spot," Mrs. Patterson interrupted quickly. "Emma prefers to sit alone during lunch. She's shy." Emma looked at the floor and said nothing. Marcus's instincts were screaming. Something was very wrong. "Can we eat lunch together outside?" Marcus asked Emma. "Actually, it's better if students stay in the classroom during lunch," Mrs. Patterson said. "School policy." "I'll take responsibility," Marcus replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. He took Emma's hand and walked out. Once they were alone in the empty hallway, Marcus knelt down to Emma's level. "Baby girl, tell Daddy the truth. What's going on?" Emma's bottom lip trembled. Then the tears came. "They don't like me, Daddy," she whispered. "They say I'm different. They say I don't belong here." Marcus felt his chest tight. "Who says that?" "The other kids and Mrs. Patterson doesn't stop them. She makes it worse." "What do you mean, honey?" Emma took a shaky breath. "She makes me sit in the corner during lunch because she says I'm disruptive." But I'm not, Daddy. I just asked to join the groups like everyone else, and she said I needed to learn to be quieter and more like the other children. Marcus felt rage building inside him, but he kept his voice calm. What else, Emma? Tell me everything. Last week, Sarah said my hair looks like a bird's nest. Mrs. Patterson laughed. She said, well, some people have different kinds of hair. Then all the kids laughed at me. And 2 weeks ago, during art class, I drew a picture of our family. Mrs. Patterson showed it to the class and said, Emma's family looks different from most of yours, doesn't it? Then she asked if anyone else had mixed families like mine. Marcus was struggling to control his anger. Emma continued. And in reading class, whenever we read books about black people or slavery, she makes me stand up. She says, Emma can probably tell us more about this, right, Emma? I don't know what to say, Daddy. I'm only 8. It makes everyone stare at me. Marcus stood up, his hands shaking. Has anyone else treated you this way? Any other teachers or students? In gym class, Coach Reynolds always picks me last for teams. He says it's random, but it's always me. And in the cafeteria, Miss Harper, the lunch lady, she's nice. But I heard her tell another teacher that Mrs. Patterson said to keep an eye on me because children from certain backgrounds sometimes steal food. Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This was worse than he'd imagined. Why didn't you tell me and Mommy sooner? Emma looked down. Mrs. Patterson said if I complained or made trouble, it would be harder for me. She said I needed to learn to fit in better and not always play the victim. I didn't know what that meant, but it scared me. That was it. Marcus had heard enough. He walked back into the classroom with Emma. Mrs. Patterson was at her desk, eating her own lunch. Mrs. Patterson, we need to talk, now. The teacher looked up, surprised by his tone. Mr. Johnson, if this is about. It's about my daughter being isolated, humiliated, and subjected to racist treatment in your classroom. It's about you singling her out, allowing other students to bully her, and creating a hostile environment for an 8-year-old child. Mrs. Patterson's face turned red. I have done no such thing. Emma is being overly sensitive. These children need to learn. These children need to learn what? That racism is acceptable, that teachers can discriminate against black students. Several students had stopped eating and were watching. Marcus didn't care. I want to speak to the principal right now. Mrs. Patterson stood up, her voice icy. Mr. Johnson, you're disrupting my class. I'm going to have to ask you to leave or I'll call security. Please do, Marcus said. In fact, let's all go to the principal's office together, because this conversation is just getting started. Principal David Morrison was a white man in his early 60s, weeks away from retirement. He'd been principal at Riverside Elementary for 15 years. When Marcus walked into his office with Emma, followed by a flustered Mrs. Patterson, Morrison's first instinct was to defend his teacher. Mr. Johnson, I'm sure we can resolve whatever misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding, Marcus interrupted. This is systematic racial discrimination against my daughter, and I have questions about how this school is run. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus laid out everything Emma had told him. Every incident, every comment, every moment of isolation. Principal Morrison looked uncomfortable. Mr. Johnson, I'm sure Mrs. Patterson didn't mean. I don't care what she meant, Marcus said firmly. I care about what she did. My daughter has been suffering for 3 months, and not one person in this school noticed or cared. Mrs. Patterson tried to defend herself. Emma is a sensitive child. She misinterprets things. I treat all my students equally. Stop, Marcus said. Just stop. You don't make white children stand up during lessons about their race. You don't isolate them during lunch. You don't mock their hair or their families. He turned back to Principal Morrison. I want to see Emma's records. I want to know every time she was disciplined, every time she was sent to the corner, everything. Morrison hesitated. That's confidential. Not from her parent, it's not. And if you refuse, my next call is to the superintendent, followed by my lawyer, followed by the local news. The threat of publicity made Morrison pale. Let me get the file. As Morrison pulled Emma's file, Marcus made a phone call. His wife Jennifer arrived 20 minutes later. She was a lawyer and she came ready for battle. Together, they went through Emma's records. What they found was damning. In 3 months, Emma had been sent to the quiet corner 47 times. For comparison, the next highest student had been sent 5 times. Emma had been marked as disruptive or defiant 23 times, but there were no specific incidents described, just check marks on a form. She'd been excluded from group activities 15 times, always noted as student choice, even though Emma said she'd always wanted to participate. Most damning. There were notes in the file from Mrs. Patterson describing Emma as difficult to integrate and struggling to adapt to our school culture. These notes had never been shared with Marcus and Jennifer. Jennifer, in her lawyer voice, said, "Principal Morrison, this is clear documentation of discriminatory treatment. This file shows a pattern of targeting one black student in a predominantly white school. Every entry here could be used as evidence of racial bias." Morrison's face went white. "Mrs. Johnson, I assure you—" "Don't assure me of anything," Jennifer said coldly. "Here's what's going to happen. Mrs. Patterson is going to be placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. Emma is going to be moved to a different classroom with a teacher we approve. And this school is going to implement mandatory anti-racism training for all staff. Mrs. Johnson, I don't have the authority." "Then get someone who does. Because if these demands aren't met by tomorrow morning, my next stop is the school board meeting tonight. And I'm bringing this file, my daughter's testimony, and every parent of color in this district who wants to know if their children are being treated the same way." Principal Morrison picked up his phone and called the superintendent. By the end of that day, Mrs. Patterson was placed on administrative leave. The school district launched an immediate investigation. Within 48 hours, 2 more families came forward, both with black children in Mrs. Patterson's previous classes. They had similar stories of isolation, mockery, and discriminatory treatment. Their children had been too scared to speak up, and the parents hadn't realized the pattern. The investigation uncovered that Principal Morrison had received 3 complaints about Mrs. Patterson over the years, but had dismissed them as misunderstandings. He had failed to document them or take any action. 1 week later, Mrs. Patterson was fired. Principal Morrison was forced into early retirement. Coach Reynolds received a formal reprimand and mandatory training after his random team selection was found to consistently place minority students last. The school board issued a public apology to Marcus, Jennifer, and Emma. They implemented new policies: mandatory implicit bias training for all staff, a diversity and inclusion committee with parent representation, clear protocols for reporting and investigating discrimination, complaints anonymous surveys for students to report concerns. Emma was moved to Mrs. Chen's classroom. Mrs. Chen was an Asian American teacher who welcomed Emma warmly and made sure she felt included from day one. Within 2 weeks, Emma was smiling again. She made friends. She started bringing home artwork again. The stomachache stopped. One evening, she told Marcus, "Mrs. Chen says everyone in our class is special in different ways. She says our differences make us stronger. I like that, Daddy." Marcus hugged his daughter tight, grateful he'd trusted his instincts that day. 3 months later, Emma won the school art competition with a drawing titled, "My Family is Beautiful." Mrs. Chen hung it in the front hallway where everyone could see it. Marcus and Jennifer's fight didn't just help Emma. It helped the entire district. The story made local news. Other parents, Black, Hispanic, Asian, and allies, began speaking up about their own experiences. The school district realized they had a systemic problem, not just one bad teacher. By the end of the school year, Riverside School District had hired a director of diversity and inclusion, updated curriculum to include more diverse perspectives, created a parent advisory board for equity issues, implemented monthly culture celebration days in all schools, required all teachers to complete 40 hours of diversity training. Other school districts in the area took notice and began examining their own policies. Marcus was invited to speak at school board meetings across the state. He always said the same thing: pay attention to your children, trust your instincts, and never, ever accept that discrimination is normal or acceptable. A year later, Marcus was invited back to Riverside Elementary for a parent panel on creating inclusive schools. He stood in the same hallway where he'd comforted his crying daughter and told this story. "A year ago, I walked into this school and discovered my daughter was suffering. I could have stayed silent. I could have just moved her to another school and pretended the problem didn't exist. But that wouldn't have helped the next Black child or Hispanic child or any child who was different. Change doesn't happen when we stay silent. Change happens when we speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. To the parents here tonight, watch your children. Listen to them. If they're withdrawing, if they're suddenly sick every school morning, if they stop talking about friends, investigate. Don't assume everything is fine just because the school looks good on the outside. To the teachers here, every child in your classroom is someone's whole world. That student sitting alone in the corner, someone loves them more than life itself. Treat every child like they're your own. See them. Value them, protect them. And to my fellow parents of black and brown children, you are not overreacting when you sense something is wrong. You are not being too sensitive. Your instincts exist for a reason. Trust them. Fight for your children. They deserve to learn in schools where they feel safe, valued, and seen. The room gave Marcus a standing ovation. After his speech, a young black mother approached him with her 6-year-old son. "Thank you," she said with tears in her eyes. "My son starts here next year. Because of what you did, I know this school is working to be better. You gave us hope." Marcus knelt down to the little boy's level. "You're going to do great here," he said. "And if anyone ever makes you feel like you don't belong, you tell your mom right away, okay?" The boy nodded seriously. "Okay, Mr. Johnson?" The universal truth Marcus's story reminds us of several important truths. Trust your instincts as a parent. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone dismiss your concerns about your child's well-being. Children rarely lie about mistreatment. If your child tells you they're being discriminated against, believe them. Investigate. Don't wait. Silence enables discrimination. Speaking up is uncomfortable but necessary. Marcus could have quietly transferred Emma. Instead, he fought for every child who would come after her. Documentation matters. The file Marcus and Jennifer examined provided concrete evidence of discrimination. Always request documentation and keep your own records. One person can create change. Marcus's courage to confront the school didn't just help Emma, it changed an entire school district's policies. Our children are watching. Emma learned from her father that standing up for what's right matters more than staying comfortable. That lesson will shape who she becomes. If this story moved you or taught you something important, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. We share real stories about courage, justice, and standing up for what's right. Drop a comment and tell us, have you ever had to fight for your child at school? What happened? Hit that notification bell so you never miss when parents like Marcus show us how to protect our children. Thanks for watching, and remember, trust your instincts, believe your children, and never stop fighting for what's right. See you in the next story.